Welcome to Flipping Miami, a podcast for those who want to learn real estate investing, do more, and make more. Now, here is your host, Raul Bolufe.
Welcome. This is Raul Bolufe. Thank you guys for listening. Flipping Miami. I have a really interesting guest on the other side of the camera today, from Indy. And I'll let him introduce himself in a bit, but I want to thank you guys for listening. And if this is your first episode, welcome. This is a show where I talk about real estate investing. I interview awesome entrepreneurs who are involved in that space. And if you're interested in like how to flip properties, how to find deals, how to sell deals, how to grow business, maybe you're an agent and you're starting to do things a little bit differently, you know, this is a good show for you. And I'm so excited for Steve on the other side to kind of share some of his wisdom. I was in a mastermind that he did, I was like 3 months ago or something. And it was just an awesome event. We met in another mastermind, so we've kind of remained friends. And yeah, let's jump into it. By the way, before we get into it, you can listen to this on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or you can check out my website, raulbolufe.com, for all free stuff. Steve, welcome, bro.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you're in Indy out there. You told me it's tons of snow. I'm not used to this over here. I'm not used to that shit over here.
I told you that's why I don't know about tons of snow, but it's already snowing.
It's already snowing.
Not even Thanksgiving.
This might be a really dumb question. I don't know if I should ask it, but is there like mountains up there to like ski or snowboard?
There are in Indiana. There's a couple places, but they're
in Indiana. Okay.
Not in Indy. It's like flat cornfields.
Got it.
Yeah.
So how far to like mountains are you?
You pretty much need to get on a plane to go to a real place. I'll just be honest.
All right, cool. Thanks for at least trying.
Listen, our downtown is awesome. It's been rebuilt, redesigned. We have the Colts and the Pacers and some other things, right? We have the Indy 500. So there's some really cool stuff like that. But yeah, other than that, there's no oceans, but we don't have hurricanes. There's no mountains. We barely have tornadoes. There is a fault line here, but there's not any earthquakes like California. You know, it's just like Indiana is just kind of like chill. So
that's good. It's kind of like your personality, but you're chill, but you're like pretty hyperactive, dude. Yeah, but let's get into it, man. So we'll kind of intro you as we go instead of just doing like an intro on what you're doing. But basically, fast forward, Steve's got an awesome wholesaling business with his partner up there in Indy. They've been doing deals, tons of deals, and they have a really cool structure. But anyways, so I want to start from the beginning. Who was Steve in high school? Who would have met like your freshman, sophomore year? Like who were you? What were you doing? Were you shy? Did you play sports? Did you get good grades? Like who was Steve back in high school?
Man, I don't know if I want to answer all those questions. I loved high school and college, but it's funny. I'm always like an all-in kind of guy. I can't do anything. It's really funny. I was just talking to the gal that cuts my hair the other day because she was asking me about, she jogs and does these like 5Ks. And I told her I used to run more and I need to get back at it. And she's like, oh, there's a 5K. I'm like, nah, it needs to be like a mini marathon. And she's like, dude, every time she talks to me, it's like, I'm doing fasting. So I'm not eating for a week. I can't fast for part of a day. Right. So I've always been that way. So back in high school, it's funny, proximity, I grew up in the country, so like my friends were people that rode the school bus with me. I didn't really have neighbors. And some of those guys were into skateboarding, so I got into that. And I was actually sponsored by a local skate shop. Had a half pipe in my backyard. And
no way.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, I used to do like contests and like little demos. People would like watch us ride skateboards and stuff, but I got I was into that until I got my license, and then I could actually start driving myself around, and I switched friend groups.
The cars will do that to you.
Skateboarding in Indiana in the late 80s, early 90s, what didn't make you that cool? So anyway, it's funny because I was friends with a lot of people because I kind of did that, right? And so I've always been someone that is into relationships, and that's the way high school was. Super competitive, love sports, played different sports. Not too competitively in high school, but through high school and into college, I was literally and actually into my first jobs. And still today, my personality is, like I said, it's like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to learn everything about it, and I'm going to do it like a way no one else can do it. But I've also been like, I probably missed some of the basics that I'm supposed to take care of in life. Like a couple years ago, I got pulled over and I got out of the ticket because of my personality, but I forgot to renew my license plates.
That's a great example. That's a really good example of what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah. So regarding that with my grades, I was always like, I'd get an A or two, a B or two, a couple C's, and like a D. And it was always like the A's were classes I liked. The D was one that I had no interest in. It was probably the easiest class I took, by the way, but I just didn't care. So I wouldn't show up. And then the C's were like, I was just kind of okay about it. But same way in college, a couple semesters I actually tried and got a really high GPA. But yeah, so that's kind of who I am. Like I'm super into relationships, and real estate is awesome, but it just happens to be what I did. For me, it's more about the entrepreneurial side, owning a business that's a lifestyle business. I know we're going to kind of get into that journey.
Yeah. And so that's interesting, man. And the reason I asked the high school question is because, everybody starts there. I mean, unless you didn't go to high school, but whatever, you know what I mean? Everyone kind of starts there. And I feel like in high school is like when you start developing, like in your mind, all right, what am I going to do next? Like, where do I go? And sometimes people base that decision on like their performance in high school. And then a lot of times, more times than not, the reality is so different. And so like, someone like, let's say you, who, maybe you got good grades, maybe you got bad grades, you're kind of just in and out, kind of just like making your way through high school. You weren't a straight A student all the time, but you still ended up with a business, a good career, and a good lifestyle. I mean, we're always fine tweaking it to make it better and better. But it's that like journey, that story that I want people to kind of resonate with. Not everyone who becomes like really successful is like a straight A student or an F student who had this epiphany. Everyone kind of has like these little journeys. Did you like play sports in high school and stuff or no?
Yeah, wrestle was the main sport. I did everything in junior high. In high school, I wrestled, and then in college, we had a pretty heavy Greek life. I went to Ball State University. We had a big intramural, so I played more sports there, a lot of basketball, and I got into golf after. So in high school, though, wrestling was the only thing I did like at any higher level.
Right. Shit. So wrestling. So okay. So let's say, Steve, you're there. You're getting good grades. You're kind of wrestling. It's time to finish high school. It's your senior year, your whatever. In your mind, senior year, or like leaving high school, what did you believe you were gonna do next? Like, did you believe you were gonna be in business? Did you believe you were gonna work for a company? Did you believe you were going to college? Like, what did you really like believe was gonna happen next after high school?
I don't think I had a really good grasp on who I was, and so I didn't have anything in mind. I just was going to go to college. And I knew that I probably was going to get a business degree. Okay. But honestly, my plans were like college was going to be fun. Crazy. As driven as I am now, the other thing I struggle with, Raul, is I don't have a great memory. Like my memory is an iron tank about business and things in my life right now. But as I was a kid, I mean, in therapy, there's probably a reason why, but like high school, I remember a lot, but junior high, not much. Elementary, I barely remember anything. It's kind of weird.
Interesting.
I didn't have a life aspiration of what I was going to do after college.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. So nice. So where'd you go to college?
Ball State University. It's in Central Indiana.
Ball State. And
that's our claim to fame in Bonzi Wells in the NBA. So the two people any of you heard about.
All right. So you didn't know you wanted to get a business degree. So there's something in you that you're like, okay, this business stuff is interesting. All right. So let's fast forward a bit. At what point did you shift your mind, or at what point did either a moment happen or some events happen that you're like, all right, it's time for me to get like my shit together and let me either, I don't know what did you have like a first job, or did you kind of just start getting into business once in college, or how did that go?
So I had a couple jobs in high school, nothing that I cared about, but in college I really didn't work much, a little bit. But what's funny is the fraternity that I was in got me connected in student government. It got me connected in the intramural sports at a high level. It got me connected socially. I had a position, I was on like the executive team of our fraternity house. I just was kind of on this path where I didn't worry about it. And when I was graduating, I just talked to 2 or 3 of my fraternity brothers I liked, and I had job offers. I didn't even go through like an interviewing process. I've never had to sit back and look for a job. Isn't that crazy? And so I just kind of knew the other thing with me is like I always believe in myself and I know things are going to be okay. So I'm not one to like fret about what my plan is 1 or 2 years from now or 5 years from now. I know that I can make stuff happen. I can see things other people can't see. I'm willing to do stuff other people won't do. So I plan a lot more now being 44 and having 3 teenage kids and a business with people that count on me and things like that. But I've never been one to be like super tied to the future. I don't look too far out.
And where do you think that belief came from? Or like, where do you think that like kind of little mindset came from? Is it just natural, or do you think your dad or some of your parents thought that way, or maybe an older brother or something, or no?
Yeah, my parents have a really strong work ethic and like can make things happen. My dad is he's always providing value. He's always there to help people, and he was a little bit entrepreneurial, but he started a business actually. And then when we got older, I had 2 sisters. It's funny, he gave that up because he had a really good steady career with a company that was later bought by IBM, and he had just great pension, great career. He took the stability route, which is like I left that as quick as I could after college. I was like 7 years in corporate world, and I was dying to get out. But I think he had the same thing in me that I have in me, but he is just a little bit more conservative than me. But what's interesting is, when I think about it, I feel like I always knew that I could do something and I was going to do something. I just wasn't sure what it was going to be. And I also know that growing up, and maybe we'll get into this later, but a big piece of me knowing who I am now, well, you met one of my coaches, Jen, when you came to the mastermind. Jen helped me understand more who I am than anybody else has in the last couple of years. And through therapy and coaching and things, I realized, I grew up, again, I didn't grow up in a neighborhood. My sisters are 5 years older and 5 years younger, and both my parents worked. So I was alone a lot. And my ethos is to connect to people. Like, I'm not really extroverted. Like, I don't like going to parties. I don't need to be around people just to hang out, but I want to connect. Like, I want a relationship with people. And being alone a lot, I think, really honed my creativity. And I think part of that belief in myself and my creativity that helps me figure things out came from I'm not a follower because I'm not used to being in a situation like that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so good. That's like kind of the commonality here. Like when you interview people who've done stuff, like they always have this kind of belief. And I just want to let you guys know, whoever's listening, this belief is in you. It's in everyone. You just have to find it. You just have to accept that it's there. Some people are like, man, I think I could be, a business owner one day. But then it's like the thought is gone and you never think about it again. It's like, no, you should think about it. And then you start thinking like, man, would that be something I want to do? Is that like a real thing? And it's almost like you had that belief coming up, and like the difference is you actually took action on it, whether you thought you were or not. Little by little, you're taking action. You're probably surrounding yourself around people who are like, maybe we're doing bigger things. Then you probably got a job, and then you probably really looked at like the boss and what he was doing. And I don't know, I'm thinking that's kind of how you were thinking.
Yeah.
So what was your first job? What was it out of college?
First real job?
Yeah, first real job.
I worked for a company called EDS, Electronic Data Systems. They were in like, I don't know how many, 100 countries, but 120,000 employees. It was actually, that's where Ross Perot made a lot of his money, if you guys remember Ross Perot. But it was a huge global IT company, and my client was the Defense Department that I got put on, the first client that I was on. And so it was tech consulting. And so I got out of college in 98. So it was like the run up, the dot-com bubble, the Y2K stuff. Like,
Yeah.
tech was really like booming at that point in time, and there was a lot of people trying to like race into the dot-com world before it popped. They didn't know it was going to pop, but they were pouring in. And then there was a bunch of people that thought the world was going to end at 1999, December 31st at midnight. They thought every software system in the world was going to crash.
Nice.
So it was going to come out.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, cool. And all right, so that was your job. So let's fast forward. Okay, you're working there. Maybe you had a couple other jobs. Was there one moment, or was it an event, or was it moments, or many things that led you to saying, I need to do my own thing?
Man, that's a good question. I also like how you didn't give me these questions ahead of time to think about them. So
I do that on purpose, though. I remember I've been interviewed on podcasts. They give me the question, I start thinking, and I'm like, I don't know, like these are good. But I think on the spot, it's more genuine, I think.
it is. It's transparent. So, honestly, what you said about having stuff inside of you, I think we are who we are. Just to take a super quick step back, when we were talking about I was talking about who you are, and I always knew that I kind of believed in myself, so when I start a business now, the belief that I know I can make it happen, but I only want to do what I want to do, but I know I can do it like no one else can do it, or I can provide value that people can't provide because I'm willing to. And then I marry in the fact that relationships are important to me. That goes whether I'm, consulting with someone, I'm coaching someone, I'm helping a seller with their house, I'm helping a buyer. I want to connect and provide value to that person, right? But going all the way back with that belief, it's funny because I remember specifically one of the few elementary school memories I have since you've been kind of going there on this podcast was in 6th grade we had to read a book and do a book report. And I hate telling my kids this. I've still, other than a business book, I've still never read a whole book from cover to cover ever in my entire life. So I didn't read a book. It was the night before this book report was due. I made an entire book up. I made up every character. I made up the plot. I made it all up and I wrote this report. And I remember presenting it in front of the class, and Mr. Anderson was my teacher. I remember him saying hey, that was interesting, Steve. I really appreciate it. You did a really good job presenting, but do you mind bringing that book in tomorrow? Bring that. I haven't heard of that book. I mean, he knew that I just made it up. And I was like, oh yeah, let me do that. He let me off the hook too, because the next day he's like, hey, where's that book? I'm like, oh man, I forgot. But I think he probably appreciated the fact that I wrote my book report.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
But that's the same crap I do now. I'm going to make my own business up because I don't want to work for somebody else. I'm going to do my thing. You know what I mean? And I see it in my kids. When they were babies, I have 3 teenage kids. They're 13, and 16. Literally, when they were babies, they had little weird tendencies. One gets more annoyed or upset as the other. One's more affectionate than the other. Literally, in their teenage years, the good and the bad with them, it's the same. They've been the same person since they were born. So to your point, I think this stuff is in us. And so for me, to the question you're asking now, did I know? I think I always had inside of me that I was going to do my own thing. But it took me taking 2 or 3 jobs. Each job I took was a smaller company. So every time I had a bigger role and I was closer to the owners,
yeah,
I was gravitating towards it and I didn't even know. And
I could be there. Yeah.
And so the last company that I was with, I literally was the only executive they've ever hired. It was a couple family that owned a business. They were one of our main consulting clients, and they hired me to come in and run all the stuff. Everyone else that worked for them was commission only or admin kind of person. And so while I was working there, though, they send out 100,000 postcards a month to seniors in 9 states that said, do you know that you could lose half your money in your estate to probate? So these guys sold insurance. But to get to the insurance sales and the annuities, they used estate planning. They would do trusts for people. So they would market and say, you need a trust. And then they would protect their assets. And in the trust, it lined up every asset they own.
Oh my gosh.
The trust was done. The attorney didn't deliver it. A financial analyst delivered it and said, by the way, here's your trust. You should really probably redo that. You should, at your age, you might want to sell this property off and prepay an insurance policy. That way you'll give your death benefit to your family tax deferred. And starts financial planning for them. And I thought it was brilliant. And they were listening to Michael Gerber stuff. And then I was about 28, 29 at this time. I had already started a tech company because I saw so many .com things going on before that, and I did it on the side. And I had sold that, and I did some venture capital raising during that time. So like I had this experience of starting something. I talked to venture capitalists. I saw this family. I mean, they were all making 7 figures, each individual family, you know. And I'm like, this is legit, and this is exactly how they do it. They buy a list. They mail to it. They get a response. They have a lead-in product in their funnel. Then they come back and they have an upsell, and there's a process, and they recycle leads. And so I can't point to one thing, but like after being around that for like that last client that I had after like 6 months of being around that family, I'm like, all right, I'm doing something. And I had a buddy that I knew from the gym kept telling me, hey, I've been going to all these real estate seminars. We should do this. So that's my story of how I heard a bug, and I just had to be around it enough to realize like, oh, I can do this.
Gotcha. That's pretty good. Yeah. So basically you got close to the owners in your jobs, and you saw behind the curtains. You're like, man, they built a little funnel. They built a little marketing, and it's marketing and sales. They got a marketing thing going on. Like, this is something that I like. This is something that I can do. And then how and why wholesale? I don't know if that was the first real estate venture you got into, or were you an agent before, or did you go directly into wholesale, and why and how did that happen?
So typically when I tell this, we don't have enough time to go through it. So here's the fast version. If you want me to dig in, let me know. So I knew I wanted to do something. I had started that tech company. And in fact, that's a whole nother story I won't get into, but it was called Momentum, K-N-O-W. And the tagline was, it's not who you know. Or it's not what you know. It's who you know, right? And so it was basically, back then it was called Friendster, was like the big one, and MySpace was out. But literally it was LinkedIn. So we were like, hey, there's all these social sites, and Facebook wasn't around yet. And so this is like 98, 99, 2000. And so we were going around telling people, I specifically remember there's a company here in town, and I know I'm digressing a little bit, but this is kind of a cool story I think people like. So there's a company here in Indy called ExactTarget that got bought by Salesforce for $2 billion. It's a local success story in Indianapolis. We had started this company, and we're like, hey, there's all these social sites, like classmates.com was our business model, to get people paying $3 a month and then invite their friends. And everybody invites 2 or 3 people, and they invite 2 or 3 people. And we were trying to build this out. We had like 8,000 people, and like 5% were paying. And we're like, oh, we can do something. We were building the site out, but we weren't really trying. It was all like kind of word of mouth. And we were going around, and this is so like, again, 2000, all the venture capital guys were like, did you know that you can't make money on the internet? And these social connection things, like nobody's willing to pay for it. There's no money in it because no one knew it was going to be advertising like Facebook. Because we thought it was a subscription model. You would pay to use it. And they were probably right. No one's going to pay to use it, but we didn't realize it's the advertisers. But I got so discouraged during that time. And it was also interesting because I sat down with this guy that started ExactTarget way before they were big. And I remember telling him, like, okay, it's like this Friendster site, but it's for business. And he looked me right in the eye and he's like, Steve, my sales guys spend their entire life building their Rolodexes. Their contacts are like gold. They're not going to put them on the internet for everybody to see. They don't want people to know who they know. I mean, it's so funny because now you look at LinkedIn, right? And like the networking, and I remember walking out there, I was like, man, this sucks. Like, so I doubted myself.
Yeah.
And because of that, like I kind of got like in this funk where I'm like, man, this isn't going to work out for me, which was the right thing because I decided to walk away from it. But when I did that, and this is the point I was trying to make, I think that was a cool story to share because I think if people get kicked in the nuts, they might give up, right? Yeah. And I'm like, oh, you guys are right. There's no money on the internet. Nobody's going to share their contacts. And now there's Facebook and LinkedIn. But I was kind of like, all right, I'm not going to do this tech stuff. I don't want to be out. I'm not going to do this like internet thing. I don't want to do something that someone can tell me isn't going to work. Like what works? Like real estate has always been there, always will be there.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's been bugging me at the gym, and now I got all this free time because I quit my side hustle. You know, I got out of it. I sold out of it. And so like, that's why real estate happened. I wasn't like, oh, I have this passion for real estate.
No, it was just like your friend, and it was just your other shit didn't work out. So you're like, fuck it, let me go see what this is all about.